What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where me and my good friend Brian over there cover comic books that have been adapted into movies and streaming shows. We basically talk about these shows, we talk about what we liked about them, what we didn't like, and we just want to be part of the conversation that you guys have when covering comic book media. Now, Brian, I'm a little bit of a bully sometimes, I think, with you. I think I kind of like shove my opinion onto this show and don't give you a chance sometimes to go first. Did you actually like these last 4 episodes of Umbrella Academy?
I actually did.
Oh no!
Yeah. So okay, not it is obviously there's a lot of plot holes. I feel there's a lot of things, a lot of holes I can poke in this, and there's a lot. And I think the show had some. So we're covering episodes 3 through 6. We did 1 and 2 separately previously. So we're starting off at episode 3. And that I feel like they had some momentum going there towards the end of episode 3, the beginning of episode 4, and they just shoot themselves in the foot. And it kind of like strays for like an episode and a half, but I think it came together sort of nice in the end.
Okay.
In a thematic way, maybe not a plot way, because I don't quite understand what they did and how and why and all that. I feel like I was very interested by the end of the 3rd episode. The siblings are all together. They're kind of recovering from being from Jean and Jean hitting into the van and taking Jennifer. And they kind of they go to some of them go to Hargreaves for help.
Yeah.
So wait, they go to Hargreaves. Some of them split up here. I forget who does what exactly. Like,
Klaus like goes off on his own and has his own little mini adventure.
Klaus goes off on his own, and he has a little adventure from the comic actually. But ultimately, like I said, there around the 4th and 5th episode there. I feel like they just didn't know what to do with some of these characters, and they lost a lot of momentum towards the end there. And I do sort of like the ending, but it definitely is a little messy. It's almost like I would think that 6 episodes wouldn't be enough for it, but it's almost like it was too much. Yeah, they should have streamlined it a little bit more, maybe.
Yes, that was actually one of the tickers I was going to make. There's that line from Lord of the Rings where Bilbo says, I feel like too little butter spread on too much bread or something like that, like spread too thin. That's what I think about the plot and the characters for this season. Whereas there's like the main plot, there's this beat they want to get to. They're kind of getting there, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's too much. We can't hit that point. We have to kind of stretch this out. It doesn't work.
Like if they would have come together and found the when they found where Ben murdered all those keepers, and if they would have stuck together there and then just kind of streamline that into the ending, I think it would have been a much better overall season.
Yeah, I 1,000% agreed. Like if it was just like a 4 episode season and that's what they did, that'd be fine. But here's the thing, like we talked about Doom Patrol last week too, and I feel like with these shows, they're kind of they know that the audience enjoys this sort of like shock value of storytelling where it's like, okay, we're gonna do some random weird thing here that the audience would never expect in a million years. Not like we're gonna kill off somebody, but we're gonna just do some random weird thing, and the audience eats that shit up. And I think that when you tell a story like that, it's fun, it's enjoyable. I actually like that a lot. But then you get to the point where you're like, okay, well, does this make any sense? And so one of the main things that I didn't understand when we go from the 3rd season into this season, you have the Umbrella Academy. They don't have powers, but is the implication that like the Umbrella Academy was in this world and they're just basically in their place? Or is it that the Umbrella Academy never existed in this world?
It's really hard to say because Hargreaves exists.
Right.
And he they clearly. I don't actually. You don't see the regular Umbrella logo anywhere. It's always the upside down one for the Keepers. So, but I mean, he seems to be aware of all of them.
Right.
So they must. It's a really tough. That's a weird hole you can poke in it because he clearly knows who all of them are. But then where are the original ones that he knows?
There you go.
He didn't raise them unless they did step into their and like took over the version that existed. Maybe, but I feel like he would have a problem with that potentially.
Right. Exactly. And so that's just weird. It doesn't really get addressed. Then there's the idea that one timeline's collapsing that had the Sparrow Academy, and Sloane is just gone, right? They bring the Ben from that timeline over to this one. And then I was under the impression that like Hargreaves did everything in that timeline so he could get power in this one and then essentially bring his wife back. And that's what it seems like. But then it's like, no, this is a different Hargreaves. So it's very confusing.
I believe it is a different Hargreaves.
Yeah.
Because they keep referencing it when on the conversations with Victor. He says like, I don't know about the other guy, but this is what I thought or whatever. But that was the goal. That was his goal, was to bring back his wife, and this was like the one place where she still existed. But I feel like that sort of gets lost in the plot as well.
Yeah,
because eventually she turns on them and kind of joins the Keepers because she wants the cleanse to happen. And I was very confused by that because it's the event. Well, the thing. So I guess when the Marigold comes to Earth from wherever Hargreaves is from, splits the timeline, and I don't. I don't understand why does the wife okay, so maybe the wife thinks that they ruin things just to bring her back, sort of, so they need to get rid of the Marigold and then everything's there. Okay, that sort of tracks. It's the motivations are very unclear. For a lot of characters here, and they kill a bunch of characters too, just like like Gene and Gene, and I don't know if Cy Grossman was who he said he was initially, or if he was always the wife. Yeah,
I took it like he was always the wife.
Okay,
like he sends them on that mission.
I mean, I would say that he was always the wife when we saw her. I do imagine that Cy Grossman did exist, and then the wife took him over at some point off camera prior to the start of the story.
That's the way I interpret it. Yes.
Yeah. How that works, I don't know either. But whatever, they're aliens. Okay. But yeah, like he then she kills Gene with the G, and then then also Gene with the J later on. So it's just like, I don't know. It was just weird motivation, and like I feel like that was supposed to be like a big shocking thing, and they needed to have some kind of twist with an existing character, and they just didn't have the time to properly set it up.
Right. I mean, I don't even know where to start with all this, honestly. Like, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos where people are like, the end of the Umbrella Academy is awful. They ruined this show. They did this. They did that. And one of the main complaints they always make, everyone hates the fucking romance between Five and Lila. Everyone hates.
I actually didn't hate it.
Oh God. Okay.
I'm crazy. It comes out of nowhere, sort of. It was in that weird time frame of episode 4 and 5 where everybody's kind of off doing their thing and the momentum was killed. But I actually didn't mind that storyline. It was kind of stupid that Five and Victor were fighting, while this blobbish creature was right there, and it kind of created some unnecessary conflict. But I do think that ultimately they were trying to push both Lila and Diego into into a crisis, and then have them come to a realization about each other, sort of.
Yeah, and I guess like this little side romance is like this is what happens when you're in this sort of like suburban domestic relationship and you kind of want more out of life and you're discontent with your life, and then so then this other person becomes appealing to you. There's like that whole angle. But I just, when I was watching this show, it got to a certain point where I'm like, okay, can we just kind of move forward with this? Like, I don't really care. And I just didn't really like those scenes with them, like on the train going somewhere for years, and then like they're kind of like being kind of loving to each other. Like I was like, I don't care, just move on. And I know that sounds very dismissive, but I just kind of feel like it kind of came out of nowhere. And that's what a lot of the complaints I see are about how like what happens to these characters doesn't seem to match up with what was happening to them in the prior seasons to now. The stuff with Lila. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. The only character that was moving the plot forward was Victor and Hargreaves.
Right. But then
everybody else is on their off on a side adventure for no reason.
Right. But that's another complaint that I see a lot too, is that like Victor as Vanya, as Victor was like so powerful that they brought on like the apocalypse a couple of times in the past. And now like they were just basically like riding around in a car with Hargreaves.
It didn't bother me in a sense because I think that I liked that Victor was finally looking for approval from Hargreaves. Although I guess maybe he shouldn't have been, because he's, I guess, kind of a dick still.
Yeah.
He kind of like for a while he's like, you know what, maybe you do have value or something like that. And maybe that's the wrong way to look at it, because it's like, oh, you have value because you have useful powers now.
Right.
But
right.
I feel like that's what Victor was doing, was kind of looking for that approval, and maybe that's not the best thing for the character. You know, they shouldn't be looking for approval from this person that never gave it to them, never wanted to give it to them, never gave them a second thought. Maybe that would have been a better angle to take, but I feel like that they were attempting to move the plot forward by finding Ben, and I guess Five and Lila were attempting to do something in that other timeline thing, but they just got totally sidetracked, and it meant absolutely nothing ultimately. Except thematically getting Lila to realize how much she cherishes her family, even though she was kind of like complaining about it prior.
Right, exactly. And I think when we talk about the side quests that don't add up to much, the one that people have a lot of problems with is Klaus's story. Now, you just said at the beginning of this episode that Klaus actually has this kind of adventure in the comic. So that makes it like a lot more, it has a lot more value for me now. But when all the Klaus stuff is going on where he's like trapped in this apartment and he has to like do seances to earn money for this biker guy, I was like, what is this? Like, this is just like filler, basically.
It's the is it the Mothers of Agony or whatever? I feel like they were in the show prior, and so there is a connection here. I just don't remember what season it was, but I think this was a plot point in either the Dallas storyline in the comic or early Hotel Oblivion. I don't remember which one, but yes, he is trying to. He is essentially being, doing those kind of seances for this gang for money. And there is this woman that comes in and wants to talk to her dead husband. First they do have sex, and then they also try to find out where he buried this money. And then there's this shootout, everyone dies, and then Klaus is left. I even think he gets trapped underground. I don't think Allison saves him. I don't remember who does, but it seemed like it's like we don't know what to do with these characters, and we have this little time to fill. So let's throw something in there. And that's what his story felt like. That's what Allison's story felt like. That's what Luther and Diego's story felt like. At least with Five and Lila, they went to go do something with a purpose. Like they left to go try and kill Ben, like what happened in the original timeline. And that's where I felt the show was gaining momentum when they got their memories returned of what happened to Ben, and then they just fucked it all up. and then whatever happened. And I don't know what the hell this like Marigold and Durango thing is. I don't know if there's some kind of like, are those totally made up words, or is there some like physical, physics based concept that any of those words are in like that? I doubt. But
No, yeah.
that seems all weird and stuff. And
Right.
but ultimately, I liked that the show is about the world ending again, and ultimately this cycle of them causing the world to end over and over and over again. And the only way to fix that is to sacrifice themselves. I actually do like that ending thematically.
Yeah.
There is a lot of holes in that. Like Lila brings her family and Claire to that subway, and they go to another reality. But isn't the whole thing about resetting to only one timeline? So I don't understand what the hell happened with that there. But I mean,
well, they kind of do show, because they show like the convoluted train system, and they use the map of it, which is just all these different weird lines and stuff, and then all the lines disappear, and then all of a sudden it's just one line. So I think that that's kind of implying that like basically every other timeline gets wiped out, but then there's just one left. And I think because they were on the train, they made it to that safe timeline. That's the way I interpreted that.
Yeah,
but
I did interpret that was the same way, but it's still kind of a weird thing, I guess.
Oh, it's 100% weird. And I mean, I want to make a joke about how Ben and what is it, Jennifer is the girl that has the Durango, like the two of them together merging. And by the way, that image of the weird bubbly faces and stuff is actually from this season, right? Yep. Remember last time we recorded, I was like, is this from the show?
Yeah.
And then they merged together to essentially become like the Cloverfield monster.
Yeah. Or I took it more as like Akira.
But. Okay. Yeah, I can see that too. Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the idea of like they keep trying to fix reality and they keep just messing reality up. And I feel like that's kind of a commentary on the multiverses that we see in movies, like the MCU, and then I guess like the bad DCEU timeline where we had like the Flash movie and stuff, where it's just like you go to change an event in the past or change something from happening, and it just makes bigger problems. And so you basically have to like just give up. And I do like that moral. I guess I just really don't like those episodes in between where like we have Diego and Luther like just kind of randomly. Yeah, it's just very randomly join the CIA. Yeah.
And then just so happens that the CIA boss guy was a keeper. Like that was such. It feels like such a throwaway idea to connect it, loosely connect it.
Right. Exactly. So like, I guess that's my issues. I didn't hate this as much as other people did. And I made the thumbnail like a little mean-spirited too. I said that we binged through this show because it was so bad. It's not that it was bad. It was just kind of a letdown. But the ending itself, I do like. It's the idea of like, without them ever existing, which is it's also like this great final line where like Hargreaves is talking about that specific date when all the children are born with the powers. And he's like, on this specific date, nothing happened. I think that's a great way to end the show.
Yeah.
But then I didn't know like who we were seeing in that epilogue. It looked like they had Lila's family
So no, they had, it was all the characters that had been affected by them and died in their crossing their paths previously. So you had the handler from the first season. You had Hazel and Dolores. So Hazel was the guy that everyone loved in the first season. It was one of the with the masks, and he fell in love with the waitress Dolores. Had some of the other people from the organization that Five worked for. You had the Swedes, the three blonde-headed guys. They just basically showed that all these characters that ultimately died by being involved with the Umbrella Academy are kind of living their best life now that they sacrificed themselves. And then, although the ending is the final shot's a bit confusing because you see 8 flowers pop up, 8 marigolds pop up, and you see that kind of little glow on them. So it's a little ambiguous what happened there.
Yeah. I don't know what'll happen next, but it was just a disappointing kind of end. I think that the show really was something special by the second season, kind of faltered with the third season. And then right here at the end, when it was the time to stick the landing, I just think that it wobbled pretty badly. And
yeah, it lived over the finish line. But I'm ultimately I'm happy that it got an ending at least. I guess.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied enough that what happened. It's not perfect. There's a lot of holes in it, but ultimately, I guess okay with it.
Still better than the fucking Acolyte, right?
Yeah.
I
love all the memes about the Acolyte. I think I sent you this one where it's like it's a picture of Darth Plagueis and it's like, oh, now we'll never know what happens or if any tragedies befall this character.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, like Brian and we've covered all these sort of like mediocre shows and stuff in the past few weeks, but then we've also covered some really great stuff. Next up for us then is the Terminator Netflix show, right?
Terminator Zero, which comes out, I think it comes out on the 28th or 29th.
Yeah.
So we'll have that. I don't think we're going to binge it. Maybe we'll do a couple. I don't know how it's going to go. We've never really covered it in anime, or if you could even consider this anime because it's a Netflix show. I don't know how that works necessarily, but we'll see how it goes. It looks interesting.
And look, I actually remembered the show this time.
You did. You remember
Yeah. Cool. Well, so then that's it. Guys, check out our 250th episode that just premiered last week. That had our review of the first season of Batman the Caped Crusader. We got this Terminator show coming up. And of course, there's always comic book adaptations in this lovely world we live in. So, we will see you guys next week as soon as I hit end stream the correct way. There we go. See y'all.